Now, what do you see as the role of emerging economies in helping finance some of the most important things of the future? For example, development, debt, any other thing of that nature?
Well, I think there are two main issues. Is one, of course, debt and the value of debt and the real net worth of the world, I would say, because basically we are in a monetary system where we know how to benchmark each country's wealth as long as the monetary system works. Now, we have challenges to this monetary system, as we could see in 07, 08 first, and then in 2010, 2011, in Europe especially. So you have to know exactly whether liquidity is the benchmark, in which case, of course, there is a lot of liquidity in the world, and you can definitely finance the amount of debt that we will need to develop the developing world. Now, if liquidity is just another bubble, as we had in the past, and if we have a challenge to this liquidity, for example, liquidity which went to emerging markets, China, for example, eventually turns out to be a liquidity trap where wealth was not really where we thought it was. If, for example, the banking system in China or other countries just collapses, then we have a big issue. So I think we have really an issue of benchmarking the emerging countries' wealth and their stability in terms of economic and monetary system.
And now, do you think for some of these emerging economies, take China for example, do their forms of finance or their forms of economic development, do they provide good models for the rest of the world or other places? Or do you think they could potentially clash with existing or former models?
I think so far, if we take the example of China, China has been very cautious in not clashing. Because of course, if you take the capital flows in China, there's one sentence that I like very much to repeat and to quote myself. There is something that China borrows. And if you ask people, what does China borrow? Basically nothing except US dollar. Because China borrows the means of settlement from the US. China has been very cautious, not challenging the system because it uses it. Now we're coming to a step where China is so powerful that it could use its own currency. As I tried to show, it's now the 5th traded currency for basically commercial exchanges. So yes, there is a threat, there is a potential that another system emerges. But whether this system will be regulated or not, I think this is the big question.
And then the final question, to shake up the existing financial system, which in the West certainly doesn't appear to be working perfectly well. Are there sort of symbiotic or synthesis ways of combining emerging market styles to Western styles to maybe Indian or sub-Saharan African styles?
I think we've been either very smart or very lucky, because if we compare the situation in the last 10 to 15 years, we could have found big collapses, deep collapses of the world monetary system. We avoided them. We learned from past experiences, so we should feel very lucky that we saved the system several times. Whether that's because we merged the ways of thinking, probably. We did have involvement from emerging countries. Did those emerging countries involve enough to infuse their thinking into our system? Probably not. This is because the point I'm trying to make is that we have regions. We do not have yet one new world. We have new regions emerging with new systems, and they seem to fare quite well. But whether that concur to making the whole world wealthier, this is still a question.